Hello, everyone. No, it's been a few days. So tonight, I'm going to touch bases on domestic violence. Um, I went through that quite a few times. My most recent 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and it went on for about 4 years. So I do want to share some pictures, some wounds, and then I'll actually speak more. So this is a photo where my kid's father had the first time he ever put his hands on me. That is a blow to the face where all of this part of my lip and everything was pretty much swollen. I want to show you guys another photo. I'm kind of going to show you guys the photos first, and then I'll kind of speak on certain stuff. So I'm gonna show pictures first, and then I'll talk about topics. So this is the second photo. Again, that was a bite mark. He had bit me on the side of my face. The next photo is another blow to the lip. And in that case, because I've worked in behavior health, mental health, memory care, healthcare pretty much since 2000, since I graduated from medical assistant. So at that point, I started to, and everyone that knows me knows that I do not wear makeup. And I was buying makeup, not even my complexion, because I didn't know anything about makeup. And I was covering these bruises that I was getting. So I was trying to make them less noticeable, which, because the makeup didn't match and I didn't know what I was doing, it wasn't cutting it. People were noticing, people started to say stuff. Here is, you can see it, kind of the swelling went down, but for the most part, you can see the swelling on the right side of the face. And again, these are all separate occasions. These were over the years. And I will say it got worse. It got worse and worse and worse and worse. This was where, my hair had got pulled out. And what I will say is, that for the most part has taught me to never, ever, ever mock, never laugh, never, just never. When it comes to any of my friends, I want to say for the most part, I've grown to love to speak and reach out to people who are going through these incidents, because when I was going through them, I had a certain set of people that knew, not a lot knew. I had been forced to cut off family. I had been forced to cut off friends. I had gotten verbally, mentally, and physically abused so bad that I got into a deep depression. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't, because I thought everything I did was wrong. Everything I did, I thought had a consequence. Everything I interacted with, I thought, I would get hands and feet put on me. Because I had grown accustomed to knowing that everything I did was wrong. Everything I did was a problem, whether it was too hot, whether it was too cold, whether I was 2 minutes late, whether I was a second too fast. It led to me getting pulled by my hair, getting punched to the floor, getting spit on, my kids getting abused. Like, it was a lot. And for starters, some people ask like, why didn't you leave? It's not easy because you're at fear that this person will find you. You're at fear that everything you do, this person will find out about. And it got to that point where the violence, it got so bad. Specific incident happened on my birthday, 2015. My son's father had wanted to have intercourse. At this point we were so bad in our relationship, I just barely wanted to be around him. We were living together and I just kept my distance. And he was drunk. He tried to tear my clothes off, tried to force me to have intercourse with him. And my oldest son walked in the room yelling, stop, get off my mom. At this point, he had already punched me in my face. He had already scratched me. This is another picture. Scratch mark. That was a scratch mark. That was my lip, where he had punched me in my lip. As well as he had busted a blood vessel in my eye. Some people may have seen that picture on Facebook where I had the red spot in my eye. And my son walked in the room, he's get off my mom. At this point we were tussling. In the midst of it, he shoved my son, which kind of made me more angrier. And when he shoved my son and I went to attack him, he pushed me into the bed. The bed slid. My youngest son at that point was maybe 6-7 months, and he had fell off the bed. My baby had fell off the bed. At this point, I think he kind of knew that this was my breaking point. I probably had a lot of rage in my eyes. I had a lot of anger. At this point, I was seeing red, and my goal was to kill this man. He had hurt 2 of my children. So he took my keys, he took my cell phone, he ran out the door. I consoled my kids. At this point, I was hurt that my kids got hurt, and I was more so afraid of, what's next. Is he gonna come back? What's going to happen next was my question. Long story short, one of my neighbors that I was really close with, my son and her daughter were, friends, went to school together, had called the police. The police came and knocked on the door. And at this moment, when they knocked on the door, I had no idea that they were coming. So I thought it was him coming back. So I swung the door open, ready for round 2. And when I opened the door, my clothes were ripped off. My face was bleeding, swollen, a total mess. And when I swung the door open and started to yell, it was the police. At this point, they took pictures. They took a statement, which they had already took one from downstairs. Basically told me, my kids, pack up some stuff. We're going to put you guys in a motel room. If you took your keys, your phone, whatever, then I don't think it's safe for you and your kids to be here. So we did that. In the midst of us getting into the police car, one of his friend of his family's, I want to say, happened to walk up and have my phone and my keys. She stated that He had given them to her, and he was at her house. And at that point, I knew he probably was hiding somewhere in the complex. He probably was sitting in the car somewhere, whatever the case may be. I took my phone. I took my I went to lock the door, took my keys, took my phone. Now at this point, I told the police, I would like to drive my own car because I don't want anything to happen to my car. So they ended up putting us into a hotel for a couple of days. I ended up, CPS, I ended up getting involved. I sat down with the CPS worker. She basically told me, she had got her hands on over the years police reports, how many times the police was called because he would have his mother who we were residing in Reno and his mother was residing in Oakland, and he would call his mother and have his mother call the police and make reports to CPS, just, tormenting and just stuff that was behavior that I had never seen an adult person do who wasn't there to witness anything. So CPS got involved, and she basically, told me that at this point, if I did not walk away and if I did not keep my kids in a safe environment, she would make it her total mission to remove my kids from my household, which, at this point, I had been wanting to leave. I had been wanting to get away from this, and he would come to my jobs. He would come to my kids' daycare. It was never ending. So in my mind, I just felt it was easier to roll with the punches, And so I ended up moving into my own space, moving everything out of the apartment that we lived in, and just total disappearing. And CPS ended up, having to do a walkthrough, seeing my house, seeing where my kids would be, monitoring for a couple of months, and eventually closed the case. But in this case, we went to court. They filed child endangerment on him because my kids have been hurt due to his domestic violence numerous occasions. And at that point, I knew he probably was hiding somewhere in the complex. He probably was sitting in the car somewhere, whatever the case may be. I took my phone. I took my, I went to lock the door, took my keys, took my phone. Now at this point, I told the police, I would like to drive my own car because I don't want anything to happen to my car. So they ended up putting us into a hotel for a couple of days. I ended up, CPS, I ended up getting involved. I sat down with the CPS worker. She basically told me, she had got her hands on over the years police reports, how many times the police was called because he would have his mother who we were residing in Reno and his mother was residing in Oakland, and he would call his mother and have his mother call the police and make reports to CPS, just, tormenting and just stuff that was behavior that I had never seen an adult person do who wasn't there to witness anything. So CPS got involved, and she basically, told me that at this point, if I did not walk away and if I did not keep my kids in a safe environment, she would make it her total mission to remove my kids from my household, which, at this point, I had been wanting to leave. I had been wanting to get away from this, and he would come to my jobs. He would come to my kids' daycare. It was never ending. So in my mind, I just felt it was easier to roll with the punches, And so I ended up moving into my own space, moving everything out of the apartment that we lived in, and just total disappearing. And CPS ended up, having to do a walkthrough, seeing my house, seeing where my kids would be, monitoring for a couple of months, and eventually closed the case. But in this case, We went to court. They filed child endangerment on him because my kids have been hurt due to his domestic violence numerous occasions. And it, just was a proven fact that you were not having any care in the world about your children. You were harming their mother in front of them. You harmed them on certain occasions. It was clear to the naked eye that this man had a problem. So they ended up granting a restraining order and a stay away. On many occasions, then we ended up having to have not visitations, but he had got them 2 days out of the week, which was a supervised visitation, and he also had previous domestic violence cases from his other children's mom. So this judge happened to get her hands on all of that and realized, that he was the problem. Well, this particular judge, after hearing my son's testimony and my statement and just reading police reports, she felt, as a single mother of boys, she wanted to grant further protection for me. So she ended up granting me my gun license for Nevada. I ended up going to the gun range, practicing. I ended up getting me a gun, and we were exchanging the kids at Walmart. And in Nevada, it's open to carry state. You can carry your whatever firearm. So I wasn't too big of carrying it on a holster on my, I kept it in my purse. So in the midst of us exchanging kids at Walmart, he snatched me by my hair and basically tried to threaten me to tell me, if I took his kids away from him, it would kill me, this, and the third. So I ended up pulling my firearm, and he kind of stumbled back and was like, what you gonna kill me? You gonna, like, in front of my kids, and at this point he went to grab my hair again, and I let the shot off in the air, fire, warning shot. Yeah, warning shot. So he backed up, got in his car, drove off, yelled out the window, F them kids. And it just pretty much made me realize that I will never have peace living in the state of Nevada as long as this man is alive. So, one thing led to another. Eventually I moved to California, and I never looked back. And, some people say, that's not, this is his kids, but it's like, with all the tormenting, this guy was putting my kids out in the cold at 2 a.m, calling the police, knocking my kids off of objects, telling my kids that they're not his favorite kids because he has mixed kids and they're fully black. It just was a numerous of things, and I don't wish what I went through on anyone. I got spit on constantly. I got my hair pulled out. I got drugged. I got locked out in the cold. I got to the point where, and I'll show you guys another picture, that I went into labor with my youngest son, and I was crawling on the floor, and he wasn't there. He was out cheating, and I could not do anything. I was calling. He ended up walking in the door, and he sees me on the floor crawling, and I'm telling him I'm in labor. He gets on the couch and goes to sleep. Well, long story short, I end up going to the hospital, going into labor, and my son had to be put on oxygen, a feeding tube, and in the incubator because he was under respiratory distress. He wasn't early. He wasn't underweight. He had to be in ICU for 14 days because I was under respiratory distress so bad. My blood pressure was high. My baby's breathing was traumatic. And it just was a wake-up call that I walked in the hospital after having my baby, and I had to leave him there to walk in and see him like this. All because of a person who was supposed to love and care for him, not giving two fucks about him or his mother. So I know there's a lot of people that deal with domestic violence, and you know, you get judged by everybody. Sometimes you'll be scared to speak up. Sometimes you'll be scared to call out for help. But what I will say is, you're not ready to walk away from it until you're ready. Everyone can tell you that is the wrong thing. Everyone can tell you, no, this isn't right, walk away. But until you are physically, mentally, emotionally ready to walk away, maybe it'll cost you to lose everything. Maybe it will cause someone to get hurt. But whatever it is up to you to be done. It's up to you to walk away. Can't nobody do it for you. And don't let no one peer pressure you into feeling like you're a bad person because you can't handle the situation how they want you to handle it, because it never works like that. I have family members coming to pick me up, and it took a simple text, call, I'm sorry, I'm this, I'm that, let me see my kids, for me to go back. But it took that 50th time that 2 of my kids in one incident got hurt due to him not accepting me telling him no, for me to say, you know what, this is it. I'm walking away. And at this point, I didn't care if he went to jail. I didn't care if they locked him up and threw away the key. At this point, I did not care. If my kids did not have a father, I did not care, because I felt they needed a mother just as much. And if I stayed or continued, one of us would not be around any longer. And I couldn't let that happen. To this day, 2021, my kids have not talked to. My kids have not seen. My kids have not interacted. My kids have not been involved. And neither has he reached out or anything to my kids since we left Nevada in 2015. And what I will say is, some say, your kids need their father, this and the third. My kids are in a happy place. My kids are better off. My kids were jumping at every loud noise. My kids were plugging their ears and running to every loud, jumping at every loud noise, every loud voice, every chaotic anything. Traumatized my kids. So what I will say is, ladies, don't worry about what nobody says. At the end of the day, do what's best for you and your kids. Leave anybody and anything that basically interferes with the happiness of you and your child. But again, it's up to you. Can't nobody decide when you're fed up. Can't nobody decide when you're ready. Can't nobody decide when you're tired but you. And I say that to say, after 4 long abusive, this man got me to my lowest point, okay? My lowest point, to where I hated living. And the only thing that kept me going was my babies. I should have never let somebody get me that low, but I did. But I'm better now. I smile. My skin is glowing. My kids is happy. Life's good. But it took for me to want to be here, to get here. So, I will see you guys tomorrow. My editor kind of takes some time editing. So, kind of, eventually it'll be a daily thing, but bear with me. See you guys tomorrow.